We're streaming already. I didn't really plan this very well. And we're going to talk about things. And the main reason we're here is because of the June tests.
Hey.
I'm your host, Sav, or Charlie. We have CC.
Hey.
That's Chard Cheese. And we also have Sim, or Nero. I don't know what he wants. We haven't really talked about it.
I don't think it really, I need to create a third identity now.
Yeah.
I think I've outgrown both the other two.
Both Nero and Sav are gone. So, talking about the June tests. What were you just talking about? Oh, we're talking about Richie McCaw just failing a post-career
post-retirement drugs test.
Yeah.
But apparently, World Rugby have said that it's not going to matter now because he's going to be a bodybuilder in the future. So, he's probably going to win Mr. Olympia in the next 3 years at some point.
Yeah, he didn't actually fail the drug test. That reminded me though that
although this is probably going to start a rumor that's going to end up on some Australian website where they're then going to ask for like the last 10 Bledisloe Cups to be awarded.
Could you bring those
after
back?
the event to Australia?
But that you saying that just reminded me that Kimbo Slice died from a heart attack or heart problems. Do we know Kimbo Slice?
I know Kimbo Slice. So, like, basically the news is backyard brawler who made famous for participating in some mixed martial arts fights and losing them badly passed away.
Yeah, but to me,
obviously it's bad that he died. I don't want him to get really flamed on the sub now, aren't I? For
well, no,
this guy doesn't care about dead people. But yeah, rest in peace, Kimbo Slice.
No, the interesting thing to me is not necessarily him as a person, which is kind of rude. We're a rugby pod, so I don't really know much about him. But it's more the steroid point of view that it really does seem to mess up your heart. There's quite a few young people, like 40s, 44, 46. There's quite a few people with messed up hearts after they've taken, steroids in an uncontrolled way.
Guy in my gym who's about 45 took a lot of steroids growing up from the ages of about 25 to about 38. And he's had a heart condition for the past 4 or 5 years, and he's completely off them now because he can't take them and still expect to live much longer.
Yeah, so, I mean, I'm looking at it, and apparently Arnold Schwarzenegger, I saw in the threads, has problems with his heart as well. He's 68, and he's had 4 operations on his heart or something.
Mm-hmm.
So, it does seem to really mess you up, even if you're really careful in nutrition and everything. So yeah, that was interesting to me.
Our advice is, young rugby players, do not take steroids.
Don't, and as we're talking about steroids, we should bring it to Wales.
Jamie Roberts.
Shouldn't we, Chard Cheese?
We should clarify before we get sued.
Nice little segue there.
There is no evidence or suggestion other than the big head that any of these players have taken steroids of any kind.
Or HGH, or anything that might cause a massive head to appear out of nowhere.
Or had any HGH sent to their wives, like Peyton Manning did. Because sometimes women... Yeah, Peyton Manning had HGH delivered to his house. Well, his wife had HGH delivered to the house.
Of course, because she's really... And to be honest, though, Peyton Manning's skill, and this is... I'm not a massive American football fan, but his skill is not anything to do with, like, needing HGH, really, is it?
Although HGH really would have helped him come back from the...
It'll help him recover.
Neck surgeries that he had.
Yeah.
And then came back to have the very best seasons of his career.
It helps him recover and helps him fire bullet passes and everything. But for me, at a certain point, that level of skill is more about picking your pass and knowing what to do than anything else. But yeah, anyway, we're on a really weird segue about steroids.
We haven't talked about the June tests at all.
Yeah, let's bring CC in to talk about Wales.
And
his favourite player. I'm going to put Matthew Morgan up on the screen. There we go. Look at him.
Yeah,
looking like a young child there. Yeah, I think he's quite young in this picture. I think he might. He might
quite young in general, I think, isn't he?
Okay, well he might have put. I thought he'd put on a few pounds since this picture had been taken. But I don't know if you can see it, but I think he's put on a few pounds since this picture.
Is he actually going to play, CC?
I doubt it. At the very best, he'll have a bench place, and that would be due to injuries more than anything.
That's the dream.
I heard a suggestion that he was going to start on the wing.
No, this is some weird kind of Facebook commentary bullshit that goes on where people think, oh, he's fast, so that means you're going to put him on the wing.
He's not a winger.
He's just not a winger. I mean, with maybe if coming to the Blues, they want to start putting him there in some LV Cup games or something, develop him there.
Yeah,
Maybe that's something they might want to do. But
seemed a
it's
bit
not going to happen
surprising to me.
internationally.
Yeah, especially considering that Savea and Naholo are both quite fast and actually very big too.
I watched. What was the picture? Matthew Morgan getting hand off. He was playing Bristol, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he got palmed off in the final, and they scored on the left wing past him, and I was just thinking.
I'm pretty sure he was handed off by David Lemmy. So I mean, that's
yeah.
David Lemmy is what?
but you look at that and you go, if Sevilla or Naholo gets a 1-on-1, they're going to fancy themselves, you know.
I'm just really confused now. What the hell's a Lemmy?
Lemmy, you not know Lemmy, the winger, the legend of multiple teams. Did he used to play for Sale or Bath? Who did he used to play for?
Sale have a rugby team. I thought they only played that other game with less players.
He ended up at anyway.
No, I'm kidding. I'm messing with you.
He ended up at Bristol, and he's pretty rapid still.
Fair enough.
So yeah, let's talk about Wales, and everybody getting very upset for a brief period of time about me saying that Wales would lose by 20 points to New Zealand. I don't understand that. I mean, what was the difference in scoreline against England? It was what, 20, 25 points? Was it? I completely forgot. All I knew is we scored 5 tries and didn't convert anything, and still won by quite a bit.
Yeah, I mean, George Ford left, I think, 15 points on the tee.
Yeah,
I mean, that's just not going to happen against New Zealand unless Bowden Barrett's kicking.
Unless Barrett's kicking. Now,
I mean, out of the 15, they'll probably get about 8. Really, come on.
But what I'm excited for is, I want Bigger to have a really good series. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I want him to prove. Because I rate him as
you want him
top
to prove
10.
that he's good.
I wanted him to go up against the best team, New Zealand, and the best 10s, optional, and prove that he's good enough. So yeah, I really want him to have a good series. I'm not really bothered about the rest of the Welsh team. Maybe Scott Williams have a good season, but
I think this one's really important for Bigger, and it was important for Sexton before he got ruled out. But for me, these tours were definitely going to be are we sure they're good tours? I mean, are we sure that? I mean, we're told that Sexton and Bigger are good, and yeah, they're good. But I mean, are we sure they're really good? Because a lot of their attacking play gets blamed on their coaches when it goes wrong. That Gatland and Schmidt don't allow for them to improvise and do X, Y, and Z. But at a certain level, when you see play going a certain way in front of you as a 10, you've got to take it on your own responsibility to play what's in front of you. And I think this is an important series for Bigger, because if Wales do what they always do over the last few years, that's not going to be enough to try and beat New Zealand. So he's got to do something extra special, definitely.
Yeah. I think Bigger's got to prove himself as an attacking 10, which he hasn't shown internationally, to the best of his ability. Because, I mean, especially with guys, you've got Priestland coming back into form now, who's definitely an attacking 10. Anscombe, who's getting better and better every game he plays. And then you've got Sam Davis and Reece Patchell in, the regional setup coming through, who are more attacking 10s than Bigger. And he's got to really start to prove himself now, because I think he's been getting a bit too comfortable in his position over the past few years.
Yeah. Well, I'll leap to his defence a little bit. I think you can say comfortable, but he puts himself out there every single game, and he really does commit. I've never seen him back off from a jump or a take in the air or a tackle. And when I look at because I've been doing a little article on kicking stats, when I look at his kicking stats, he has a better lifetime kicking percentage than Halfpenny. He's got a better lifetime kicking percentage so far, obviously with less attempts, than Johnny Wilkinson. His kicking percentage of all the 10s that I've assessed, and I've assessed quite a few, is the best. He has nearly 89% kick conversion, which is phenomenal.
He is a brilliant kicker, yeah.
It's metronomic. It's very useful
and
to have
from hand as well. He's like his little chip over the top that he does and chase.
Yeah,
and it's brilliant.
Definitely. There's no doubt that he's a fantastic kicker of the ball, whether from hand or tee. But it's the way he directs his backline. I mean, the other thing is when he's running with the ball, he's quite good too. But passing players into space, manoeuvring his own backline around him, and especially now that he's got a good scrum half beside him. So I think he really needs to take ownership of that and direct their attacking play a little bit. perhaps get the pods moving onto the ball at pace rather than using them as static runners, because the defence is going to charge up and catch them behind the game line if they don't come onto the ball at speed.
Yeah, and that's why they've always had Jamie Roberts to bail them out, because of that problem. But I think, well, we all know, we were saying it in 2013 that it was out of date, and now it's even more so.
I think
Speaking of the centres, go ahead.
I think it'll help having Scott Williams playing if they do start him, because he can act as another playmaker rather than Jamie Roberts, who just isn't.
I'd rather watch Scott Williams play.
Yeah.
I just want a little bit of creativity, and I think the two playmakers is kind of the standard now.
It's picking up.
I mean, some teams will go out and line up with sometimes with as many, like, three. I know that New Zealand were looking to line up with three against Wales with Cruden and Ngatai, and then afterwards bringing on Barrett or Mackenzie. But now they can't do that with Ngatai being out. But I think the more players that you have that can distribute the ball, the better, really. Yeah. As long as that they're fit in those natural positions too.
Well, if you look at New Zealand, technically they're back in the day. Obviously now it's back in the day, not really. But Carter, Nonu, Conrad Smith, all three could distribute. So, and then they'd have Ben Smith as well.
And Dag too.
And Dag. They could all distribute. At the end of the day, they've got, 3 or 4 really, can play first receiver in some way, which is ridiculous. When you look at we look at the options, we got Teo and Burrell in the England team, and you just think, I don't want them at first receiver ever. I'd rather Joe Marler.
Teo, what's the deal with Ben Teo? I've only seen him play once.
You'd have to talk to CC.
And he wasn't very good. CC, what's the deal with Ben Teo?
He has a massive cast on his arm and he knocks people out with it. That's pretty much his game plan.
Oh, yeah, we did see.
So he's basically left Luger.
No, he's definitely got more to him than that. But he is a good player. He didn't show it in the final against Connacht in the Pro 12. I barely aware he was playing in that match.
Is this going to be another case of, are we sure Ben Teo's good? Because you've told me that Dan Bigger's really good at a number of occasions, and I'm like, yeah, he's all right, but
no, he is good, but I like I say, it's difficult to tell at international level. I have no idea why England have picked him for this tour. It doesn't make sense to me at all.
No, I completely agree.
He's definitely the sort of player that, you have him available, you might pick him up for maybe one of the autumn tests or something.
If we were 3 injuries deep in the centres, or 3 or 4 injuries deep with weaknesses there, pick him. But we've got Slade, Daly, Burrell, JJ, like that. There's 4 centres done.
I think he's been picked because I don't think he would have been picked if they were going to New Zealand or South Africa.
Just because he's big, you reckon? To be fair, and this is Australia, if they pick Liliafano, Teo running through Liliafano, that's Eddie Jones will be going, yep, we'll have that.
I just think that also part of it is that South Africa and New Zealand, I still think they're better than Australia.
South Africa aren't. I know they're not. South Africa aren't.
It's difficult to tell post-World Cup, I think.
Yeah,
how teams are really...
I agree. We'll see how South Africa come back, but
I think
it's just not
it's
quite
easy
right.
to forget though that in the Rugby Championship, when they played the game against Australia, they were beating the hell out of Australia for about 60 minutes, and then they took off their best players, and Australia then came roaring back into it. And also that they gave New Zealand a much better game than Australia managed to in the World Cup.
Yeah, but South I'm going to take because I hear background noises, but I think South Africa are always up. They always up their game against New Zealand. So I'm not hugely going to take much from that. I think Sim's just been distracted by someone in the background there. I've put a picture of a Toje up with his little. It's not really a rapey eyes. I'm not really sure what those eyes are. They're inquisitively searching.
On a scale of 1 to Farrell, how bad is it?
Oh no, they're like a George Ford. No, they're not. They're Joe Marler. I'm not sure. It's interesting anyway.
Oh yeah, I can see that. Yeah.
There's been a little bit of chat about Itoje going to 6 quite recently.
Yeah, I noticed that. What do you think?
I'm a big proponent of that, and
Yeah,
I'm going to
Sim loves
explain
it.
why now.
He's wrong, but go on.
Now, I like his athleticism, his ability on the ball, and his ability in defence as well. But I just think that sometimes when you're at lock, you can get caught up in the grunt work a bit, and also to an extent, you can get taken out of the game by the ball carriers running, say, at you, making you make the tackle, and then you're at the bottom of a ruck, and a crafty player could perhaps keep you there for a next phase, and then even the phase after that, you're struggling to get back into a position to affect it. Whereas if he can get a little bit wider at 6 and then perhaps defend in the back line, well, say if there's a ruck, doesn't have to commit to the first one, but then get Australia into thinking, yeah, maybe we can go wide from here, and then that's when he makes a tackle and he's against backs who are trying to clear him out, which isn't going to work as well. Also, what it gives you is complete dominance in the line out, especially if you can perhaps say, I know they're looking at Launchbury instead of Robshaw, but I'd go with Laws.
You want Laws, yeah.
Yeah, and he's another 6-lock hybrid, and then if you can get him, Cruz, and Itoje into the same pack, you get a very dynamic trio of line-out catchers / 6 kind of players who can really dominate. And New Zealand really showed that when Australia played the Hooper and Pocock combination, that they're vulnerable to being steamrolled by big ball carriers at 6 and 8.
So, yeah, but
who can
this
really
is
put
the
pressure on
problem.
them.
This is the problem. I don't think Itoje. I mean, he's a good ball carrier, all right, but I don't think that's a positive in his column.
Why not?
He's a good ball carrier, but the problem is, and you'll see this in quite a few games for Saracens, he stands up quite tall when he carries, similar to Laws, actually.
Okay, so he's vulnerable to being held up.
So he can be held up, and you have someone like Pocock and Hooper hitting you, you get held up, you're in trouble. So I don't think putting him at 6 is a good idea. I think the only positive for him at 6 is, like you said, the dominance of the line-out. I think having three
the
really
dominance
good
of the
jumpers...
line-out would be really, really good in the terms of Australia are going to try and play these... Well, the entire objective of Pocock is to get him with the turnover. He doesn't really give you anything else. And if you can take away the fear factor of penalties, reversing territory, because you're going to put so much pressure at their line-out, then it really makes them think twice and then puts them away from their original game plan in a way. And I just really think that's one area. I know that the New Zealand really exploited them in the World Cup final by putting pressure on their line-out. And also just because Pocock, while Hooper gives you a lot in broken play, if you can exploit Pocock's lack of ability to do anything in broken play, really, then I think that would be a big plus. And I don't think Robshaw gives you as much as, say, Laws would.
Yeah, so if you watch and CC won't be happy with this. Well, it could be, because Wales did well in this area. But in the Wales-England game, there were huge holes around the fringe of both the line-out and rucks. And that hole is normally taken up by Chris Robshaw.
I would say defensively.
Defensively, yeah. Those holes, there's Chris Robshaw. Now, you've got Fardy and Hooper and Skelton trying to run at those gaps. Like, Skelton doesn't necessarily move quickly, but you need someone there to stop it. And I think Itoje's a little bit new. I'm not saying he doesn't get in the right positions, but he's not as experienced as Robshaw. He doesn't get in the exact right position where he doesn't need to make a big leaping tackle. He can just make the solid hit and then take him to ground. Robshaw does that 10 out of 10 pretty much.
I mean, I say, I don't think it's a game-breaking thing either way for England, because I've always said that with this new lock partnership that everyone's been going on about, that I don't think it makes as much of an impact as people think, because locks were a position of strength for England before, and they're just more of a position of strength now. They're not improving a weak area where you get the most benefit from having two great players coming in. So while they might be very good, I don't think it adds much of a benefit of having them as people might originally think. So you're just going from strength to strength, really, in either way.
I think the real surprise that England are going to have against Australia is their wingers. I think although Watson and Noel obviously both played the World Cup, Noel is in some of the best form of his life. He had an amazing final, lost the final, but he had an amazing game. And I think that he'll be a handful for anybody. If he comes up against Horn, or who's possibly the other winger?
It looks like Dane Petty, who's a fullback.
Yeah. If Watson and Noel get them one-on-one, then I think that they'll be in trouble.
A sneaky thing though about Australia is they're probably the slowest Australian team that I can remember.
Especially if Lealiafano's at 12.
Well, if you go with a team that's got Foley at 10, Lealiafano at 12, Kuridrani at 13, who's deceptively quick but more about power, and then you've got on the left wing Horn, on the right wing you've got Dane Hale at Pity, and at fullback you've got Israel Folau. All of a sudden, you haven't got any real pace in that back line, and your fastest player is Michael Hooper.
Yeah. Well, Folau's quick, but he's not like...
Folau's speed is an illusion. It's like more...
it's a glide.
It's very rare that you ever see him, gas a player around the outside. I mean, he's no... I wouldn't say that he's... When Kurtley Beale was in the team, Kurtley Beale was probably the fastest player.
Yeah, Beale was their quickest player.
And then in the World Cup final, it was him or Drew Mitchell, I guess.
Foley's no slouch,
He's one of those guys you could say he's not slow for a 10, or you could say he's fast for a 10.
Yeah.
But if you were to put him against, if you're telling him to chase Jan Anthony Watson, that's just not going to happen.
Yeah, he's never going to chase him. But Noel's not quick. The only reason I think Noel one-on-one with anyone is because he's so stable. If you tackle him, he just keeps coming. He doesn't stop. And that I think for defences, and especially for someone like Rob Horn, who when he makes the tackle, he usually makes it. Whereas if he makes the tackle and Noel thinks it's done, Noel will just get up and keep going. I think Horn might be caught out. So we'll see. Let's move swiftly on to... Well, should we talk about New Zealand 10s?
Oh, please do.
Yeah, should we talk...
I know you want to talk about Liam Thopwanga.
I want to talk about... Because I've been doing this kicking... stats business for a little while now. I've got my sheet up in front of me now. I've done
interest. Have you got his lifetime kicking percentage as well?
I've got his lifetime. Kicking percentage. So Sopoanga's lifetime kicking percentage is 74%. Okay, lifetime. Now he had one amazing season where he got 84%, I believe, 2 years ago.
Yeah, that's right.
And then the following year he got 67%, which
was that the title-winning season.
That was the title-winning season, which was odd. But he had an absolutely woeful season from the boot. But attacking style, Sopoanga was on point that year, and he's on point this year as well. To be fair to him, he's playing really well. If you compare that to Cruden's just got a 73% average. He's coming back from a knee injury, and Mackenzie's taken some kicks, blah, 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 blah. But if you just compare them, their kicking percentage is very similar, Cruden and Sopoanga. I think everybody's kind of convinced Barrett's got the bench spot. That's kind of done.
Yeah.
He's the perfect bench man. So it's really a fight for who's starting. And for me, Cruden better defensively, as good on attack, and equal kicking percentage. So for me, it's a no-brainer that you pick Cruden because...
Yeah, I think what I would say is that as a kicker, I think Sopoanga's maybe marginally better most days, in say 6 out of 10 days, whereas Cruden would be a better kicker 4 out of 10 days. But where there is a difference in their kicking is that Sopoanga's got a lot more... probably about 8 meters per se more range than Cruden.
Yeah, he's got a little bit more range.
Well, if they're out of range, I guess they'll just kick to touch, which might even be a better outcome for them. But the other thing is that you said that Sopoanga's not as good a defender as Cruden, and there's a big difference between them. Cruden is a much better defender than Sopoanga, and a lot of the time Sopoanga's defensive frailties are made up for the fact that the Highlanders as a team are such a good defensive outfit that
he's got Dixon and Pryor wandering around looking after.
I mean, even Fekitoa and before his injury, Buckman, they made a lot of tackles, and then when Buckman went out, they brought in Rob Thompson, who's basically a lump to stop plays with, and then he's got a lot of other defensive players who are very good around the ball and make a lot of tackles generally. But I think Sopoanga, that's where his major cross is for me, is that he's just not as good in defence as Cruden, who Cruden will tackle.
Sopoanga's big, but there's just something about him. I don't know. He doesn't make a tackle.
I've never seen so many aborted tackles. On a counter-attack, if he's chasing a kick, the defender can beat him so easily.
Yeah. He's kind of all arms. He doesn't get close enough for some reason.
Yeah,
he's all arms, and there's no shoulder or body. He's all arms, and it's all kind of just out in front of him. He doesn't actually complete and make that hit properly. So
maybe he should sign for the Blues and
Get a little
Go
bit
for
more
one-on-one.
ruthless.
Yeah, get Tana Manga to
Yeah.
teach him how to
That would
tackle.
be pretty pretty brutal. So yeah, I mean that's my thoughts on Sapawanga. I think like 70% of New Zealand would agree with that.
I'd say so.
I think even Fovey. I mean, Fovey's. I don't want to talk. He's not here, but even Fovey's is a Highlanders fan. But even he's sort of saying, Sapawonga's great and I love him, and he does. But I think he understands maybe Cruden's better. I don't know. We'll have to talk to him.
I think he'd agree with that. But what I would say is the one thing I'd like to say about New Zealand is that a lot of people have in the media, fans, you see it all the time that they've lost a lot of players, so they're vulnerable. But if you look at the players they've lost, it's like the players that have retired, apart from so you've lost the two centres.
Two centres gone. Yep.
Yep. You've lost Richie McCaw, which is a great loss. You've lost Tony Woodcock, which it's like Woodcock was slipping a while, and in the World Cup, Joe Moody played fantastically well.
Yeah.
And then I think he actually started the World Cup. Maybe I can't remember 100%. In the final,
sure.
But then you also have the other retiree was Carter, and now everyone's saying, "Oh, Carter, fantastic 10." Yeah, he was. He's, in my opinion, one of the all-time great 10s. Everyone probably agree with that. But Carter wasn't the same as he was since 2011. In the past 4 years between World Cups, he probably missed more games than he played for the New Zealand. And Aaron Cruden is at this stage, I think, an improvement on him as a 10.
And
when you look at And you look at the opportunities that you get for some of the younger players with these players going out now, and what you end up having is probably the fastest New Zealand team that they've had in a long while.
Yeah,
You've got wingers for the first time with genuine pace on the wings.
Well, apart from Sevilla.
Yeah, well, it's funny about Sevilla because
he's not slow,
he's
but
fat. Everyone says, and he's there's nothing to his game, but then all of a sudden he'll have played 50 tests soon with 50 tries, and you can't really argue.
Oh, he's quality. I think everybody knows he's quality, but
I think he could be a lot better than
it's so strange watching him play for the Highlanders. At certain points, you're just like, how is he doing? How has he just got 2 tries in this game when all he's really done is kind of finished? He's a great finisher.
The Hurricanes would be really disappointed if he started scoring tries for the Highlanders, though.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah, true. I said Canes, didn't I? No? Okay.
But with him, I think a lot of it is that when he goes into the All Blacks environment, then he kicks on another gear compared to with the Hurricanes. Where the same with Ma Nonu is that in Super Rugby, sometimes Nonu would just glide through in the knowledge that I'm an All Black. This doesn't really matter. We'll see in June and we'll see in autumn.
Yeah, Right, CC, we need you to talk about how you're going to stop the Sevilla conundrum.
George North,
done. There we go, sorted. He's going to pick him up on his back like he did with Falau, and he's going to get tombstone.
I'm going to love that collision. It's going to be epic to watch.
Oh, there's going to be broken bodies everywhere. I tell you what, North hasn't really shone, shall we say, for Northampton?
No,
he was good for this season for Wales, though, in the Six Nations, wasn't he?
Oh, he had a great Six Nations.
He likes playing for Wales. He doesn't like playing for Northampton. For me, Northampton play 10-man rugby and they're a bit boring.
On another note, have you ever been to Northampton? I wouldn't like to play for Northampton either.
I've honestly never been.
George North hasn't really... He's definitely improved as a winger in that he's probably... Because when he started out, he was just, the Gogzilla. He just knocked people over and run over them. He's changed that a lot now, and his stepping is incredible for someone of his size, and he's quick as well. But I'd like to see some of that original George North knocking people over come back into it a little bit. Yeah. Because sometimes it seems that he's even afraid to go into a contact now, which seems a little bit weird for how he started out.
100% agree. There was the moment where he really broke through. I think for everyone was when he smashed through those Irish tackles and then just delicately laid the ball off at the back of his hand.
I think that sometimes those days can have like a subtle effect on you, can't it?
Oh, it can be more. It can be more than subtle. It's fairly obvious in this case that he's not that he's completely changed as a player, but I think he has adapted his style a little bit. To perhaps prevent that head-on collision business that he was so good at previously.
Yeah.
And we're talking about Northampton. Let's talk about Malinda, shall we? CC, do you want to talk about Malinda?
Yeah, I mean, the first time I noticed him this year, I think, was in the Premiership Sevens that goes on in the summer.
Yep, I went to watch one at the Soup, and Exeter did quite well.
Yeah, he was playing for Northampton in that. I think that was the first time I'd seen him. I think he'd played for maybe the under-18s before, but he hadn't really had that much exposure. And he had a really good tournament there. Yeah. And I think people thought, that was maybe he'd get a few games for Northampton. And then he came on. I think he's come on at 13, 12. He's come on at fullback, I think, at some point.
He came at fullback a bit for Saints. Yeah.
And honestly, it's hard to say he's had a bad game in any position. He's been really good. He's quick, strong. He's got a good pass on him and everything. He's really come through this season, and I think he's captaining the under-20s in the World Championship.
Later on the coach's son?
Yeah.
He's Jim Malinda's, the Saints coach's son, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, you could argue...
Because when you said Malinda, I thought you were going to start talking about a coach for some reason.
Yeah, well, he is yeah, he is, technically, but certainly... I don't know how to describe it. There's no nepotism there because he is a quality player. So.
Yeah, he's had a real breakthrough this season.
So it's not a forward case.
One of the best parts of Northampton's backline this season, you'd say. I mean, for someone who's under 20, to come into a backline that's full of, you've got the PC brothers, you've got George North and things like that, and to outshine them in your first major season, really. Is incredible.
Is he English or Welsh or?
He is English, yeah.
Ah, okay. I thought that you might have been, just touting him as a future Welsh star, but sadly not.
No,
he's captain of the England team, isn't he?
Yeah.
He's captain of the England team. He's going to have a blinding under-20s. I think he's going to absolutely walk through some defences.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's. I don't. He didn't play for them in the Six Nations, did he? In the 26 Nations?
I don't think so. Do you know what? I was looking at the way the under-20s team is set up, and it's a little bit strange because Daly never played. I say never. I think Daly never played at 13. He may have done for a season for the under-20s, but they put him at 15 for quite a bit.
Yeah.
So
he was 15 when he played. I think the first game I saw him playing, was Barbarians against England a few years ago. I think he played 15 then. So,
I fundamentally disagree with him playing 15. So I'm kind of stressing the point that Malinda is obviously going to have to find his position, but I think people will read too much into wherever they play him over this under-20s period. They'll play him where he needs to play because he's so good he needs to be on the pitch. He can play 12, 13, 15. And I think the problem is that if all of a sudden... And I think obviously Jim will know best, who's his dad and his coach. But if we start seeing him playing at 15 constantly, people are going to be like, oh, this is the next 15, we've got him sorted. Whereas he could be a solution for any of the backline, really.
Yeah, and I think that if he's that good, though, I think they should just stick him at 15 and then in attack let him insert himself into the game wherever he wants and give himself that freedom if he is the best player in the team to be able to do that.
I don't know if he's the captain, but I don't know if he is the best player in the team. He might be.
Who do you think is the best player in the team? I don't know many of the under-20s players.
I don't know the under-20s. I'm going to have to defer to CC if there is anyone better. I don't know him, but
I mean, the England under-20s didn't have the best season in the Six Nations.
So maybe he is
this year. So I'd say he probably is. The best player. They definitely got a few.
Is that CC because they haven't imported all their South African and Kiwi-born players yet?
No, they're coming. They come in just after the under-20s. Yeah, we bring those in later, and we no, actually they're in the private school system already, but they're just not qualified yet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I actually think the England under-20s 10 playing this season was Welsh.
It's very rare. So if we want to talk about crossovers, we've got who is it? Ashley Williams for the Welsh football team. He's the Welsh captain, and he was born in Wrexham, or he was born in Wolverhampton or something. He's very much English.
I think he was born in Shrewsbury. South. I know that his dad still coaches, or did coach a couple of years ago at Shrewsbury.
Yeah, well, there you go. But he's like the most English, like when he's the Welsh captain. I don't know. I just really
Even
Yeah, but
talks with an
that's
England accent.
football.
obviously it's the football. Yeah, obviously.
Yeah,
Obviously it's
football
the-
doesn't count.
that's quite
I would like to
interesting.
say just a couple of words about Ireland and South Africa, though.
Yes, I have a picture of Matt Healy. So do you want to talk about Matt Healy?
Who's a Matt Healy?
Oh,
Oh.
don't know Matt Healy. I don't
Nah,
even
he's
know
the
if
fullback, isn't he? Or is he a fullback or winger from
Connor.
Vermont, right?
Yeah.
Winger.
See, I watch rugby in the north too.
In the north.
I've watched one Connacht game. He seems a good player. But I'm worried for Ireland in this series. Really worried. I just don't think that they're going to. I know that South Africa are going to be looking to make a statement. I think they're still embarrassed about what happened in the World Cup against Japan to an extent. And they're going to be looking to make a statement under their new coach. A lot of players will want to impress and try and cement their positions. They've got quite a few new players. I'm really looking forward to see perhaps Yankees after he's come back from injury.
I'm excited for Yantes. I'm really excited. I think he can
But
do
also
good things.
Lionel Mapu as well, and more than all, Jack O'Creel.
Jack O'Creel, yeah, I've seen his. Oh, he's been getting you fantasy points, hasn't he?
Jack O'Creel is like nothing else I've ever seen in the. He's basically he's a 13 who will play 7 somehow.
Yeah,
But he's not bad at the tight stuff either. So
he gets you points for fun. I just remember each week I'm like, no, there's no way. His run of form has to end, and I'm just thinking I can't pick him. I'll pick someone else, and then he just gets another like 16, 17 points, and I'm just like, great. All right.
we're not talking about fantasy, Sav. I'm not top at the moment, so we're not talking about.
Are you not top? You know, you're top of the line break
No.
lead, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm top of that one, but I want to be top of all leagues. So
What about the Reddit league?
maybe.
Are you not top of the Reddit
Yeah, I
one?
think I'm second by
Oh.
about 20 points.
You are horrendous.
Patrick Lambie decided to score 3 tries and about 20 points from the tee against the Kings.
I had a shocking last 2 weeks. I think I just gave up. I went from 5th to 8th or something, and there was like I think I was 100 points ahead of 8th, and I still managed to drop that over the course of 2 weeks. I was just like, oh my god. I was like, I didn't need to do anything. I thought I could just leave the team and I'll survive, and I'll fix it afterwards. Complete mess. I was in
Bad
free
move.
fall. I was an absolute free fall.
Yeah, I think that Jack O'Creel, though, just to go back to him, he's like a big hooper. In that one of my criticisms of Hooper is that sometimes he gets blown away off the ball, and perhaps that he lacks the size. But Jack O'Creel has all those other attributes as well, and I think that he could really cement himself as the open side for South Africa if they're brave enough to pick him. Because I know that it looks like they're going to go with the back row of Dwayne Vermeulen, Francois Lowe, and Siaka Kolisi for the first game, which I think is a bit of a mistake, but that's what Alistair Coetzee is known for, is conservative
His
rugby,
mistakes.
shock horror. Known for mistakes.
Yeah, he's
well-
well known for his mistakes.
I saw something really odd in The Guardian the other day. I was reading the previews, and is it Rob Kitson, I think, their lead rugby writer?
Yeah.
And he says in his article something along the lines of South Africa will be looking to play more expansive rugby under their coach, whose Stormers team was known for their attacking play. And I looked at that and I almost coughed up my coffee.
Yeah,
Not that I ever
Stormers-
had coffee, but I was just a bit it was
yeah.
actually tea. But
Of course, you
yeah, I
wouldn't be
almost
English.
coughed it out because that's just ridiculous. If that's expansive play, then I think like Toulon are basically the barbarians in style rather than just only the players that they sign.
Yeah.
I don't think that they've made a good choice in appointing Coetzee. It's going to be a lot more of the same, and I think that's why.
Bit of rustling.
Yeah, it's just one of those things with South Africa is that they just can't seem to pick the coach that they need to pick. Like they could have gone with Mark Hammett, but didn't.
Should have
And,
gone.
I
Should
think
have gone
they-
with John O'Shea. I heard he's at a loose end.
Well, they could have just poached Warren Gatland because apparently
Oh, yeah.
he would be the perfect coach for their style. by the looks of
Should,
things.
CC, do you wanna comment? Well, we need to talk about Matt Healy. I've got the picture of him up. Let's talk about Healy. I think he's been called up, or he's not been called up. I can't remember. I thought he had been called up.
Wasn't he not called up, and then a lot of injuries happened, as happens with Ireland, and then Schmidt.
Well,
decided
the Carney brothers are out. The Fitzgerald's injured. Who else?
So Ireland
Someone
team's
else is
basically
out.
got better, hasn't it? Really.
Sexton's out as well. Yeah. Yes. It kind of has got better, if I'm honest. Okay, there was a point in time where Rob Kearney was the best aerial fullback in the world, better than Ben Smith. He was basically, if you kicked it in the air, he'd catch it. That was essentially when he was on the Lions tour. He was the aerial dominant, just everything. Then I don't know what happened, but he lost something. He lost a spark. He doesn't have any attacking flair essentially. So when he attacks, he doesn't attack at space. He kind of attacks at people.
He just runs.
And I think, yeah, and was it Harbaugh? Harbaugh said he loves the company of big men. He likes to run into people and try and smash, but he's not really built for smashing. I mean, he's big, but he's not really built for it. So him and his brother are a little bit conservative, defensive. They're good, but they're not like light the world on fire.
South Africa, defensive wingers.
Well, South Africa have the smallest wingers in the world, don't they?
This is just I can't even begin there without scoffing. It's like the amount of manipulation in South Africa stats that goes on, where they'll be like, yeah, we've got these wingers who are really small, but we're counting JP Peterson as a centre.
Yeah, well, Aplong is tiny. Who was the other guy that was really small?
I think that if you look at the starting...
Colby's pretty small.
If you look at the starting wingers in the Super Rugby teams, and rather than look at the stats that are given out by teams giving their
is that you?
Weights and
yeah,
that's my alarm, because I do have to actually go back to work, so I'm just leaving now.
Oh, are you walking to go back to work?
Yeah, I am. A mid-break to bring a rugby podcast. But yeah, I think that sometimes South Africa, because their smaller wingers are never going to get into their national team. I just don't see it happening. And their other wingers are quite big, like even Ron Combrick, who's probably going to be on the bench to start off with.
I rate Combrick, yeah.
He's a good winger, and he's pretty big. I mean, Peterson as well, Raymond Rule, none of those guys are really lightweights. Whereas I think for Australia and New Zealand, maybe you're going to see smaller wingers come out there, like, for instance, Rob Haylett-Petty. I mean, he's not exactly tiny, but he's more of a medium-sized winger. And the same with Rob Horn. Maybe he is about 102 kg, but he's not like a... He's not like a 112 kg monster.
But I'm looking forward to watching Rob Horn get run around.
I've got a list here of all the players that have been called up by Ireland to replace the injured ones.
Yes,
go
on.
So the national team have called up Craig Gilroy, Matt Healy, Ian Madigan, and Tiernan O'Halloran to replace the injured players.
When did Deck join the call?
That's my best Irish report.
That was Deck.
It was a fantastic Irish accent, a lot better than my Australian one earlier.
In the call.
So yeah, it's Craig Gilroy, Matt Healy, Ian Madigan, and Tiernan O'Halloran. Pretty much the opposite of what they were going for before.
Interesting.
So they've gone for sort of maybe questionable defenders, but they've just
who's
like...
Who's going to play at 10?
Wales. Sorry, Deck just joined the YouTube chat and decided to put, I object to the Irish accent. Wales.
It's just interesting for me to see who's going to play at 10, because if they pick the right 10, the right mind,
Paddy Jackson should start.
It's going to be Paddy. Yeah.
I mean, I've not seen him play, but if he can get the ball wide and quickly, and if they can get quick ball out of the rucks, which is going to be a challenge, then if they can move the ball wide, then South Africa will be vulnerable to counter-attacks. If not, then I can just see with their big ball carriers and their locking partnership, which is just outstanding at the moment, really giving Ireland a really tough time.
Yeah, I think...
Harbaugh won't like this, but it's probably better that Paddy's playing instead of Sexton at the moment.
Well, again, with Sexton, are we sure he's good? Because, I've been told a lot, and I've almost tricked myself into believing it, yeah. I mean, sure, he's I could say he's a good player, but is he a really good player, which is what I'm getting at? Like, is he going to be one of those players who builds his reputation with the help of all the rest of his teammates around him? Or is he actually someone that, when everything else is down and his team's down around him, that he can actually create things on his own? I'm not so sure that he can.
So I'm
And
agreeing.
if he is able to, he's deciding not to, which is really odd.
Dex just come up and said that, Jacko will control the game better and the Mad Dog's really good off the bench, and that's essentially how Ireland's going to play. I do think they will be picked apart a little bit by South African forwards. I think the forwards are going to smash the living hell
We
out
should
of Ireland.
probably end the Madigan experience now. He's not very good, I don't think.
Why is it all of us, rather than talk on Slack, they've all decided to come into the YouTube chat? They're all just... Right. So let's just talk about how Ireland are just going to get beat by South Africa. No, we had something else lined up. What do we have lined up?
I am
you
going to have
talking
to
about
duck out
Warren
of this stage now, lads. I'm going to lose coverage as I go back into the office, so I will leave you to be.
Okay, I'll stick it on the ending thing, but we don't
Predictions,
actually need to
I'm going with...
Go on.
3 from the south.
All of them?
All 3 from the south.
No,
yeah.
England will win.
Week.
England will win 2 from 3 at least.
2 from 3 at least.
Yeah, 2
That's
from
it
3.
for me. Have a nice day, lads.
See ya. Bye, Sim. Oh, I can hear a hard-working place right there. Yeah, no, there's a reason I went 2 from 3, at least, because Ireland to win 3 from 3. The reason I was going 2 from 3 at least is because Australia Super Rugby-wise have been average, to be honest with you. Very average.
Yeah, I suppose, but I mean, you look at a team like Ireland, and I suppose it's difficult to say that domestic form doesn't usually translate to international form.
Yeah.
They've had for years
That's true.
brilliant provincial teams with a sort of average national team.
Yeah, Leinster.
And I suppose it's been the other way around with some teams, like with Wales, where
with
they've had
Wales.
with poor regions, but not for recent years, but have had successful international team.
You've had a reasonably, yeah.
So I suppose it's not always that thing, but I suppose it does help having a good domestic setup.
Ed's being quite brutal in the chat. I assume you can see.
I can't at the moment. No.
He's saying
I'm
Wales
slack.
to lose to the Chiefs and get nilled by the All Blacks at least once.
I can see the getting nilled, but I do think we'll beat the Chiefs quite handily.
Australia will win the Ashes. I want to put a the Urns Coming Home. Have you seen that song sung by the Barmy Army?
No,
Hoist up the Jack. It's a great song. I'll see if we can get a link to it in the underneath. But it's a good. Basically, the Barmy Army singing it at the cricket about Andrew Strauss bringing the urn home.
everything you've just said is everything
Cricket.
wrong with England.
Cricket.
All right, so we talked about the sort of the
Talk about
three,
Matt Healy.
the
Yeah.
3 major tours.
Yep.
What about some predictions for some of the other games going on this weekend?
Well,
So I've got the
Argentina are
list.
playing Italy.
Yeah, what do you think of that one?
I think the RGs should absolutely walk it.
Yeah, depends on what kind of team they play, I suppose. Do you reckon they'll go all out, or they'll treat it as like a?
Well, they might treat it as practice, but I hope they go all out and really. I want them to really show the world that the World Cup wasn't a fluke. I want them to show that they are a dominant side in world rugby. Basically, that's what I want them to do.
Yeah, but at the same time, I'd like to see Italy improve with Conor O'Shea.
And Campagnaro must be playing as well then.
I hope so. He's probably getting up there as probably one of their best players now.
Yeah.
He's incredible. Another game. So we got South Africa A and England Saxons.
I don't know. The problem is South Africa's depth is kind of lacking.
Mm-hmm.
Not like they've got really good. They do have depth, but I think there's England depth will beat it. I think the English depth is really, really good. I mean, we have so many players to choose from. I think the England A's or the Saxons will do better. I think. I'm not. But, I mean, it's Cipriani, it's a good squad. It's not a ridiculous squad, the Saxons. They're quite strong.
Mm.
Is Ewers going to the Saxons?
I'm not sure. I haven't got the teams up.
I'm looking up Dave Ewers' news now.
While you're looking up that, we also have Samoa and Georgia.
Yep.
I'd say if Georgia play their strongest team, they'd take that.
Yes, I think if they play their strongest team, is Gorgodza a? Is he? He's not retired, is he?
No, I think he should be playing.
Is he released for too long to play? Obviously, he is. It's international window, isn't it?
Should be, yeah.
Yeah.
The one thing is, I know some of their players will be playing in the under-20s this year. Like what's his name? The nine they had, the 18-year-old nine they had in the World Cup, who was brilliant.
Yes. He was good. I remember him, but he's a very
Something
good player.
Anza.
Yeah. He was their young prodigy, wasn't he?
Yeah, I think he's playing for the under-20s this year, so I don't think they'll have him. But yeah, I think Georgia at their best could beat Samoa.
Okay.
We also have, finally, Canada against Japan, BC place.
Is it Canada against Japan? I thought it was BC place. I thought it was Scotland, Japan.
That is next week.
Oh, okay. So, Canada, Japan.
Yeah.
Well, the Sunwolves have had a decent, not good, Super Rugby season. They've done all right. They've shown a couple of good games. I think they could survive. I think they could beat the Canadians. I think Japan could beat the Canadians.
I think Japan, if they play World Cup level, will hammer the Canadians. If Canada play World Cup level as well.
Yeah. I mean, I haven't seen anything to make me think that Canada have progressed. Whereas I've watched the Sunwolves play Super Rugby for half a season, and they're looking okay. They're not amazing, but they can score tries. They're a threat when they get the ball in hand and they get going. So, whereas Canada, they haven't even got McGinty. I mean, McGinty's playing for the USA. I was just thinking of that Northern America kind of thing. They haven't. Yeah. I can't think of a big Canadian player.
Canada have some really good players, but they're all injured. I mean, they're missing DTH. Yes. They're missing Tyler Ardron. They're missing Jeff Hassler.
Okay. Is DTH injured?
DTH is injured, yeah.
Damn.
And that's going to hurt them badly.
Well, that's their try scorer, really.
With DTH and Hassler, they could probably do a job on Japan, but without them...
well, DTH can take on anyone, really. I put him up there, and he's a world-class winger. He's a guy you put in your team, regardless of what international you play for, really. Yeah.
So missing him is huge. They haven't got a bad team, I'd say Canada, but they're not the best team by far. Especially, I'd put the US above them at the moment. If we're talking North American sort of rivalry.
Okay.
I don't think the Americans aren't playing this weekend. No, they're playing next weekend against Italy.
Okay. So the Italians will have a possible drubbing versus Argentina, and then they'll go and play the Americans.
Yeah.
I actually think Italy-America will be an interesting one. I think they'll win. I think the Italians will win. But that'll be more interesting to me.
I mean, looking through the fixture list for summer, there's some really interesting games. We've got next week Brazil and Kenya. That'll be a good one.
Okay.
Because Brazil improving, especially with the sevens coming up. They've had crowds of around 10,000 for their games in the Americas Rugby Championship.
Okay.
And which is incredible for a team full of amateurs and for a country that doesn't really care about rugby. So I think that'll be a good one. And then another interesting one, which I found, a Portugal 15 against Catalonia.
Oh, what the fuck? Oh, Catalonia in Spain.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was reading into it. Catalonia, apparently one of the founding members of European rugby.
Yeah, I think that's true, because I don't know if Catalan were featured, but Spain was certainly featured in quite a few of the games. Because they had like a seat on the they had a seat on the IRB or something for a period of time because they were a founding member. There was something weird going on, so they were in quite a lot of the games despite being absolutely terrible.
Yeah, they were disbanded during the Spanish Civil War, and have only played sort of intermittent games since.
Yeah.
So but the best thing is they're playing that in the new camp.
Oh, fuck me.
Yeah.
I'd love to be playing for one of them. That'd be amazing.
That's a weird one.
Are they going to fill it? I doubt they'll fill it.
It would be amazing if
Then
they
again,
filled
the
it.
whole of Catalonia, they're pretty passionate. I can imagine them showing up to a sporting event just because it's at the new camp, and why not? Let's fill it.
Yeah, I mean, and as well, there was that Spanish game, really, the Rugby Copa del Rey, where they filled about, was it 25,000 for the final for that? They filled the stadium they were playing in.
That's brilliant.
So rugby's surprisingly popular in Spain, I think, at the moment.
I hope so. I mean, I'd love for it to take off there. I want it to take off everywhere, but we already know that.
What I really want to see, I think, from this summer is a continuation from the World Cup with the Tier 2 teams, showing what they can do.
Yeah.
I'd like to see more of that. I think, especially with Georgia going on their tour of the Pacific Islands. They're playing Samoa, Tonga, and Fiji.
I want the USA to tap into some of that seventh success and come away actually with something positive from the 15-man game.
Yeah,
because they've been doing well in the sevens.
They're playing Italy and Russia, so they should take Russia.
They should beat the Russians, which would be good for the old American. Yeah, we beat the commies or whatever. That'll be the. So that'll galvanise some people if they do win. Yeah,
so it's a pretty interesting summer tour overall. Some good matchups with the Tier 2 teams as well as the Tier 1.
Yeah, although we like to stress that the fact that Argentina are they still Tier 2?
No, they're Tier 1 now.
They're Tier 1 realistically, aren't they? Come on.
Yeah.
We just like to stress the fact that game isn't really a Tier 2 game, is it? But
No, but I mean, with the fact that they're not playing top opposition. I mean, they got France. They're playing France twice, which that's good. But I mean, it's not to the same level as the New Zealand, Australia, and South Africa tours that are going on.
Yeah,
Scotland, I think, have been sort of shafted a little bit with their tour. I mean, because they're not, because they're playing Japan.
Yeah.
And I think that Japan are they're not a bad team, or not as bad as they used to be.
But even if they do well, no one's going to be like, "Oh yeah, you've done really well there."
Yeah.
So no, I can see where you're coming from. It's not. I think Scotland, Argentina would have been a good.
Yeah, it would. Yeah, I'd have liked to have seen that. Really,
Scotland, Argentina to have a 3-test series would have been really good.
Yeah, because I mean, Scotland at the moment, they need to start playing against and winning against better opposition if they want to go through this sort of change that they've been talking about for years. And they have the ability to now with this backline that they've got.
Well, Russell's out for a while now, isn't he? Because
he is, yeah.
He absolutely his face blew up.
Yeah, that was Aki's doing, wasn't it?
Yeah.
But I also think Aki didn't he take out Sexton as well?
He must have done both. Yeah. Well, I saw someone making a joke about him taking people out. So I think he might have done. It just. Yeah, brutal, but it's rugby, I suppose.
Oh, you'll like this. Nigel's got your third test with Australia.
All right, fair enough. He loves a big show, doesn't he? So if it's 1-1 at that point, Nigel's going to be there having a little chat. Let's end it. Let's end it by. I was gonna end it now. Do you want to keep? What do you want to chat?
I just wanted to talk about one thing because there's been a lot of talk recently, especially after the game that should all be named against England, the old Mutual Wealth Cup. The future of Warren Gatland.
Oh yeah,
let's talk. So, I mean, it's you can't really argue that he's been a bad thing for Welsh rugby.
No, he's done very well with the very little that he's supposedly been given.
Yeah, he had to deal with Roger Lewis and that lot for the first few years that he was there as well.
Mm-hmm.
And a kind of uncompromising union, difficulties with the regions and everything.
Funding down the toilet sort of stuff.
Yeah. But, he signed on for 2019 now as well. So, if he does continue for his full contract,
it's a long
then
time.
He'll have been Wales coach for over a decade.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah.
So...
that's something to think about as well. That if he does stay for that long, and then we have to bring in a new coach, because it's not likely going to be Rob Howley being the new coach.
No,
it's going to be someone brought in, most likely Dai Young.
I'd enjoyed Dai Young at international level.
Yeah.
Although,
and then you're going to have a new coach being brought in after having the same one for over a decade. Is that going to be too much of a change? Or should we start thinking maybe, if there's a poor run of results at the end of the season, maybe Gatland stepping down now and replacing him with someone?
I think if the time to strike will be, I think they're going to use this New Zealand thing, and he will get. I don't want to be too disparaging, but I think they will get a drubbing, and if they do, they'll sack him. If they come close, he might still get the sack, because I think they need to make a change for 2019. I can't see Wales reaching a semi-final or getting further than a quarters in 2019 with Gatland still there. I think Gatland's taken them as far as he can.
Yeah. I can't see him stepping down, to be honest. I think he's
invested.
Ingrained, into the Welsh sort of culture for that now, for him to step down.
Yeah, 100%.
But then the question is as well, who would be his replacement if he was to step down this season or was to be sacked this season? Obviously, the main choice would be Dai Young, but he's contracted with Wasps.
Yeah.
Whether he'd, consider a Wales job over Wasps, I don't know how sort of connected he is with that club, what his sort of feelings are towards it.
I think he's quite invested with Wasps. I think he's on a decent pay package.
Yeah.
I think Wales would probably match it or whatever, but I think he's on a decent pay package. He's got his little prodigies coming through that he really loves. So he's got his Dailies and his Wades, and he's got his little pet projects that he's doing really well, and he enjoys it. So for him to come across to Wales would be a big step.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
So then if you take out Dai Young from the equation, there aren't really any other Welsh coaches that you'd say could step apart from Rob Howley, and that's not really what we want.
No.
That's
interesting. There's not many options.
Yeah, and then you'd have to start thinking then international coaches.
Schmidt.
And then... God. But yeah, like I say, there's no really... Oh, God, Lancaster.
Yeah, you can have him. Where's Lancaster at the moment? Lancaster's gone somewhere, isn't he? Or is he not? He's not signed anyone.
Last I saw of him, he was doing commentary for Radio 5, I think, for
for
a match. So it's... I think he's in hiding at
the moment. Imagine he went to Wales after that. Oh my God.
There would be riots in the streets, I think.
Let's have a look. What is he doing now?
Yeah, I mean, there's also... who can we think of?
No, he's not doing anything. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's not really any other options at the moment. All the major sort of coach switching has already happened in a way. There's no one really sort of left in the air at the moment who's looking for a job.
No. It would have it would have been O'Shea until obviously he got snapped up.
I don't know whether Wales would have considered O'Shea.
I don't know either.
But yeah, it's an interesting question.
Let's wrap this up then. I just want to talk about two other YouTubers because they're bigger than us, and why not? Let's talk about other people that are bigger than us. I'm really enjoying. I don't know if you've watched any Brian Majority.
No, I haven't been watching. I know of the series. Yeah,
Life. I'm actually really enjoying it. I was went onto it thinking, oh, this will be a bit boring. He's just kind of talking about silly things, but I think the fact that he's a rugby player is kind of a side thing. Like, it's interesting, and he talks about stuff to do with rugby, but I quite like his YouTube little vlogs. They're quite nice. It's a good watch, and he's actually quite funny as well. He's a funny bloke. And Haskell as well. Haskell's I think for this particular June series, Haskell's behind the scenes stuff is going to be quite interesting to watch, just because we very rarely get to actually see what goes on in camp, direct from the players. We'll get it from the the YouTube channel England TV or whatever. But to get it direct from Haskell walking up to someone and going, "Hey, look at this, it's talk, you and me and Billy, and we're going to have a little chat."
Yeah,
That's quite interesting.
Especially during like the Lancaster reign when everything was very Puritan and clean and clean image and everything. There wasn't a lot of realness there. And I think, I'm not a massive fan of his Haskness or whatever.
No.
But I think he's...
It's the interest for me. It's the interest of the behind the scenes. Like again, I understand that the banter lad thing, like that's gone to me. That was I don't know, probably a couple of years ago when I was ever invested in that. But it's interesting to me watching them talk and just mess around. It's quite funny. I quite like it. So yeah,
it's good. It's just something you definitely don't get it with Wales because it's not as.
You get it on the lines
as much. Yeah, it's not as announced as much, but they do have a very similar sort of Stuart Lancastrian kind of clean image.
The controlled image of the Welsh boys. They're good Welsh lads, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they're looked after very well, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, I need to tell Harbaugh. So I'm just going to play the outro music now. Let's see. Oh, shit, wrong music. I don't know what that is. I think I just played our own... I just played our own podcast as the outro music for 2 seconds, but it was on mute, so nobody heard it. Oh, there we go. Outro music. Listen to that. Lovely. Let's turn it right up. Right. Sis with the Line Break podcast with myself, Charlie, or Sav on the website. CC, do you want to say goodbye?
Bye.
And the guy you heard setting his alarm and walking to work was Sim. He's our Super Rugby correspondent.
And this was a super professional podcast.
Super professional. Line Break Rugby. Subscribe if you haven't already. I don't know how you're watching this if you haven't subscribed, to be honest. Oh, we'll probably post it somewhere, won't we?
Yeah.
Right, let's turn it up. All the way to the top. Oh. Sound level's going off the peak now.
Harbaugh says nothing's playing. Oh, there we go. The gayest music ever. There we go.
Tune. Right. That's been Line Break.